The rain came down in sheets that night, hammering the concrete of the training yard until it gleamed like black glass under the floodlights. Sergeant Marin Cole was on her knees, palms pressed flat against the wet ground, staring at the shattered pieces of every medal she had ever earned. Around her stood 12 men, jeering, their voices sharp as knives cutting through the storm. She had survived deployments, survived loss, survived nights she thought would break her, but nothing had prepared her for this circle of contempt. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. It had started 3 weeks earlier, quietly, the way most cruelty does. Marin had been transferred to a new unit after her old company disbanded, arriving with a reputation that preceded her, decorated, respected, and, in the eyes of some, undeserving of either. She noticed the sideways glances first, then the whispered jokes that stopped the moment she walked into a room. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself she had faced worse. But there is a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who have already decided who you are before you've said a word. She kept her head down. She trained harder than anyone, ran further, carried more, spoke less. She believed that discipline would earn her peace. She was wrong. That night, after a brutal field exercise, the 12 men had waited for her near the barracks, faces lit orange and red by a broken security light. What began as mockery escalated fast. Someone snatched her duffel bag, spilled it across the wet pavement, and there, among her gear, lay the small velvet box she had never let out of her sight. Her medals, every one of them earned in blood, sweat, and nights she didn't talk about. A private, laughing, stomped his boot down before she could stop him. Glass and metal scattered across the asphalt like fallen stars. Marin didn't scream. She didn't fight. She simply sank to her knees, breath ragged, hands trembling as she tried to gather the broken pieces, as if she could somehow put them back together before anyone noticed her heart breaking along with them. She thought no one else was watching. She was wrong. Standing near the edge of the yard, half hidden by the rain, was Colonel Reyes, a man who rarely appeared after hours, who commanded not through volume but through the stillness he carried. He said nothing at first. He simply watched, phone already rising to his ear, his jaw tightening with every second the 12 men laughed. The rain blurred the scene into something almost unreal, but his eyes never left her. For a moment, doubt crept into Marin's chest. Would anyone believe her? Would speaking up cost her more than staying silent already had? She had seen careers ended for less than complaint, watched other soldiers labeled troublemakers for daring to name their pain. The moral weight of the moment pressed down harder than the rain. Stay quiet and protect the fragile peace she'd built, or trust that justice might actually exist in a system that had failed people like her before. She chose the harder truth. She lifted her chin, met the colonel's eyes across the yard, and did not look away. The following morning, the base felt different, heavier, charged with the kind of silence that precedes a storm no one can control. Command arrived in force, boots striking pavement in unison like a single heartbeat multiplied 12-fold. Officers moved with purpose, papers in hand, expressions unreadable. The 12 men were called out one by one, and the yard that had once echoed with their laughter now held only the sound of rain dripping from empty flagpoles. Colonel Reyes stood before them, voice level but unmistakably final. He spoke of honor, of the oath they had all sworn, of the difference between strength and cruelty disguised as tradition. He spoke of Marin, not as a victim, but as a soldier who had shown more courage kneeling in that mud than any of them had shown standing over her. Within the week, all 12 faced formal discipline. Several were discharged. None would forget her name again, though now it carried a different weight entirely. Marin didn't ask for apologies. She didn't need them. What she needed, what she received, was the quiet, unshakable knowledge that someone had finally seen her, truly seen her, and refused to look away. Weeks later, a small package arrived at her barracks. Inside were her medals, painstakingly repaired, each one polished until it caught the light like new. No note, no name, just proof that somewhere, someone had cared enough to make broken things whole again. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And somewhere, in a training yard slick with rain, a woman once knelt among shattered medals believing she had lost everything. never knowing that the very act of enduring that darkness would become the light that changed everything after. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments what part stayed with you the longest. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that courage often looks like simply refusing to look away. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, subscribe, because there are so many more waiting to be heard.